This is a GK Media podcast.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
Hello and welcome to another week and another episode of Wellth Talks with myself, Garry Kelly, Pádraic Ó Máille and Niall Leyden, where we are trying to pretty much be the nugget of wisdom, the voice for you, talk about our experiences in life, in business, that hopefully will give you a little bit of value, some insights, and just guide you as you make your way through life or in business. And really, really important topic I want to talk about today, guys. All right.
Say that seriously.
What is enough? So we have this thing as human beings where we're always striving for more. We always want more. But actually, what is enough for us? When are we actually going to come to the stage in our lives and be happy and content with what we have? Because in fairness, if you're listening to this, or even ourselves here around the table, you're making me laugh now. He's like the bold lad at the back of the class, and you're trying to do this little speech to the teacher. And going, well, yeah, where are you going with this?
I thought you were going to start talking about maths.
Don't look at Niall, don't look at Niall. It's this thing of, we do have an abundance. I mean, if we have our health, we have such an abundance, really. But we have so much in life, but so many of us are still not content. I saw someone today who was coming in and they had a big mopey face on them. This one, she's practically a millionaire, and she was like, thank God it's the weekend. And I was like, what do you have to give off about? Because to me, you have it all. But yeah, and I'll spin this on you first, Niall.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, because, well, you talk a lot about, what is true freedom and stuff like that. How much money does one really need for the rest of their life? Because you help people in Atlantic Wealth Management with this balance of having enough to live, but not dying with loads unspent either. And, that kind of getting the balance right.
What is enough? I mean, not just in terms of balance sheet or in terms of money. I know Zig Ziglar said it best. I mean, it's all very well saying, it's not all about the money, but like if you don't have money, life is tough. We're probably living in a world that worships more. And, if we talk about health, I know it's an old cliche that a healthy man has 1,000 wishes and a sick man has one. But this more mentality. And I mean, I'd measure what's your enough in terms of your time. We all think time is finite, that we're going to live forever. We're not. And then all of a sudden something happens, somebody gets sick, and then, somebody dies. So time is a big one. Energy is another one. And I mean, obviously from a financial perspective, okay, so we can stay with that for a second. So I suppose the clients we're dealing with, we have a lot of very, very successful entrepreneurs that have lots of various different investments and portfolios and pensions and so forth, but they still don't know. They don't have a map or a GPS or know what's enough. So Paul Armstrong said it best. He's a lifestyle financial planner in the UK, Pádraic. I mean, he's written a book called Enough, coincidentally enough. And I mean, the three types of people we're dealing with in Atlantic Wealth: people that have too much, they've just enough, and there's other people that don't have enough, but they don't know it. So if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. So there's the whole financial piece, but I mean, life is just not a dress rehearsal, and precious time is slipping away, and everyone is in this if but when trap. And I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. It's slowing down to line up and just say, what's important. So when we're talking to our clients, there's a very scientific way of doing all of this, and we do a cash flow analysis, and we give people ultimately peace of mind, because we're not in the business of ever selling products, because you're partnering with people and you're listening. Where's their pain? Where's their challenge? Where's the blockage? What does good look like? The unscientific rule of thumb, Pádraic, we were at a presentation a couple of weeks ago where I was asked a question from the audience. It came from left field, where somebody asked, Niall, in pounds, shilling and pence, how much do I need to be saving into my pension pot for me to have 50,000 in today's terms? Now, without doing a full 360 financial review with them, I says, unscientifically, you could look at the rule of 25 or 30. So multiply what it is you need by 25, potentially 30, and that will, broadly speaking, begin with the end in mind and reverse engineer it. So in that instance...
Explain that to me again, the 25, 30 that you're saying there.
So let's say, for example, you were to say to me...
I did ordinary maths in school, so you need to slow down for me here.
Let's say, for example, that you said, look at Niall, I need 100,000 euros per annum at age 65 when I stop working outside
to
of
live
good
the life I want to live.
Yeah. So outside of good health, what does any of us want? A good lifestyle. Big lifestyle, big number. So is it 1 million? Is it 2 million? Is it more or is it less? So that's all down to lifestyle. So in everything we do, we're completing very detailed expenditure questionnaires. And the biggest expense is typically tax.
Yeah.
And the wealthiest people we deal with, they use tax to their advantage. They don't complain about it. You know, they're using the different reliefs and pensions and so forth. But coming back to the enough question.
So let's say someone in their mid-40s now, right? If you retire at the age of 65, that could be in 20 years' time. So 100 grand today, which is a huge amount of money, in 20 years' time, obviously will be worth a lot less. So let's say you want to retire and be on 100 grand a year. Let's say I have 20 years left.
Correct. There's two parts to what you've just asked there. So you're right about inflation. I mean, inflation can be your best friend or your worst enemy. You look in 2025 years ago, inflation has averaged over 20%. So if the government announced in the budget last month that they were taking 20% out of your pay packet, there'd be uproar. But it's like having ice cubes on the windowsill melting. So inflation erodes the purchasing power of your wealth. So 20%, so inflation is another word for rising costs.
Yeah. And even just to drop in on inflation for a second, I was going through old emails there. I spoke a few weeks ago about my daughter doing her confirmation, and we had to find out when she did her baptism for the cert we filled out. So I was going through old emails of where we had her baptismal dinner, and we had it in the G Hotel. And it was hilarious because there was a 2-course meal or a 3-course meal on offer. And it was €25 for the 2-course meal or €29 for the 3-course meal. Right?
Wow.
And myself and my wife on email are haggling over, will we just do the 2-course or will we pay the extra £4 and do 3-course? Because they might be happy enough with the 2-course. I mean, there's people traveling from London and we're haggling over whether we'll pay an extra £4. But this is only like 11, 12 years ago.
And what you haven't told me is what was on the beans on toast or toast on beans.
Yeah, that is the impact of inflation.
You don't feel it. Just
you wouldn't get a starter in the G, so you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know, no. But
I was sitting outside a restaurant yesterday looking at it wasn't open, but the burger was £20 alone.
Absolutely.
In this restaurant.
Yeah.
But you don't see inflation sneaking up, especially in the last 3 years.
No, you don't. And I mean, you go back to the Big Mac example. I think a Big Mac was
€1 or something, was it?
I don't know, was it €1 or €2 back in 2020? It's 5 now, but you're right, Pádraic. I mean, it's the rising prices. Coming back to your enough piece, I mean, it's very unscientific, but it's a good starting point. If you're very conversationally having a conversation with somebody saying, look, I need 50,000 a year. I have a 25-year time horizon. How much do I need in my pot? Well, if you multiply that 50,000 by 25, that'll give you 1.25 million. And these are uncomfortable conversations we're having with clients. But the reality is, if you think about this, people are living longer. Yeah. I'm very long on progress. I mean, the world is evolving. You have technology, you have life expectancy increasing, you have poverty decreasing. People are talking about how bad things are. I mean, there's a lot of very humanitarian level things gone wrong with the world. But I mean, in the main, you look at companies, what they're doing. So in that instance, that client needed to have or will need to have 1.25 million to replace 50,000 for probably 30 plus years if you're going to live long, Garry.
Yeah, I remember you did something like this before when we were out in the sea. We were just walking, it was freezing, it was Baltic. We were walking out in the sea and I started doing this mathematical equation with, and when I figured out how much I'd have in my face, I really just collapsed into the water. It is a bit of a wake-up call because, it is that thing as well, like what is enough? Like we're working. But then when you stop working when it comes to retirement, or you could be sick and you might have to retire early, whatever, that income stream has stopped. But as you said, we're living longer now.
We're living longer.
So how do you actually still have a lifestyle that you want to have? Because there's no point working all your life. And then when it comes to retirement, actually you don't have, that kind of financial stability.
Freedom. I think, and it's a word you talk lots about, Pádraic, it's freedom. To do what you want, where you want, with whom you want, when you want. It's the freedom to pick the 2 girls up from school. It's the freedom to take a half day on a Friday. It's the freedom to be able to bring your grandkids to Portugal for a couple of days. I mean, it's the business working for you not working for the business, because everyone is just this more. And
it's having that freedom as well, not just when you retire, but even today as well, I think is important.
Yeah.
There's no point saying, what we say, like time isn't infinite. There's no point saying, I'll do all this once I retire. You don't know will you even meet retirement age. You should very much be planning, but also enjoying the present.
Pádraic, you've seen too.
Yeah, look, I'd like to bring some gravitas to this discussion. And if it's okay, Garry, I'd like to quote a few numbers in this, yeah? And I quote my father-in-law on this. He had a brilliant response to how much is enough. And he would talk about, he said, 1 is enough, 2 is too many and 3 isn't half enough. And, I always love that comment because I think...
Was this in the bar?
I was in the bar. It was in the bar. I'm coming at it from a different perspective. I think we're hugely lucky. And I was doing a little thing beforehand, and I just put it into Google before we came on the show. And I asked Google, our chatty, I said, if the world population were 10 people, and what it threw up were 1 would be in extreme poverty, i.e. less than $2.15 a day. So that's 1 out of 10. 4 would struggle to meet basic needs. They're on less than $7 a day. So that's 5 out of 10. Another 3 would just be getting by with absolutely no financial security at all. None of them. 1 would be comfortable out of 10. And 1 would be wealthy. And I was just looking at that outside and thinking how privileged we are. We have so much going for us. And that's just another way of looking at the question that you begun with, Garry. What is enough? I think we should be so grateful for those basics of our health, of our families, and of the potential to do great things. Yeah. It's back to your thing about being grateful. Some of the wealthiest people I know would have precious little in terms of financial means. Yeah. But they're the happiest people I know. Absolutely happy out. Yeah.
Kind of touching on that then, Pádraic, I remember it could have been maybe a month after I met you, Niall. You did, I think George Kinder is the guy, you did these 3 questions with me. And they were powerful. I remember I've done it since with other people who might be going through a tough time, and it really just gets them to focus on what's important in life, what is enough in life. Can you recall the 3 questions?
Oh, I can. I mean, George Kinder, Pádraic spoke there last week about books. I mean, George Kinder is a wonderful, iconic figure in not just financial planning and wealth management, but he, at a very deep level, they're known as the 3 Kinder questions. And I mean, his first question is, if for example, hypothetically, you won the Euro Millions and you never had to worry about money again, Pádraic, what would life look like? What would you do? Where would you go? I mean, and I ask that question of all of our clients. I mean, let's just dream here. And I mean, the conversation we have, I mean, the energy is infectious. They're writing, they're dreaming, they're talking, they're plotting and planning, whether it's kids or family or parents or houses or homes or giving back or community work and so forth. And the second question then is, you're with your GP, you're doing a standard run-of-the-mill medical, and the doctor just drops his glasses to the tip of his nose. He said, look, the news isn't great. You have 5, maybe 10 years at most left to live. What's going to change? I can't tell you you're going to be absolutely perfectly healthy up till when you pass, but it's going to happen sooner rather than later. What conversations are you going to have? What rows might you have had? Whom haven't you hugged? What haven't you said? And then the last question then is, you have 24 hours left to live. I mean, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? What needs to happen? I mean, you have to experience these questions for it to make sense. I mean, he's written a good number of books. He speaks very passionately. In actual fact, wouldn't he be some guest to have on Wellth Talks?
He'd be brilliant. Yeah.
As long as he doesn't ask the latter 2 questions.
Yeah.
But have you ever thought about that, Pádraic? I mean,
they're very powerful, very, very powerful. That used to come up in every Leaving Cert exam. What would you do if you won the lotto? Yeah. And it's a good question. I think the immediacy of the 24 hours is a brilliant question, and I think we could all do it. I mean, it brings you right back into the present, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really does. Powerful question.
You figure out very clearly what's actually truly important in your life.
Truly important, 100%. Brilliant question.
So what is enough? You're saying...
Well, I'd start with, number 1, your energy. You can't pour from an empty jug. I mean, get your head right, get yourself right, your self-dialogue, how you talk to yourself, what do I say to myself about myself when I'm by myself. You're the sum of the 5 people you spent the most time with. Energy goes where energy flows. Energy is everything. Time, avoid that if, but, when trap. I mean, this weekend, whatever it is you're planning on doing, get it done. Do that one thing and enjoy it and be fulfilled. And obviously the financial piece, for us, our job is very easy. It's not about managing money. It's managing people and managing their behaviours and just keeping them on track and having a plan and sticking to the plan. So KIS, keep it simple.
Excellent. Brilliant.
Shinna will,
yeah. So, think about what is your enough in life. I think it's important for all of us to have that very matter-of-fact conversation with ourselves. And if anyone knows George Kinder, we'd love to have him on Wellth Talks. So we're putting that out into the universe as well, and we'll see what happens in 2026. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Wellth Talks, and I hope you can join us again next Friday.
This is a GK Media podcast.